So we welcome you to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Friday, October the 8th, 2021. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you into queue. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart. And welcome, everyone. We are honored and delighted that you are with us today and that we get to have another conversation about first century Aramaic forgiveness. You know, this radio show conversation has been going on for 10 years, and the forgiveness conversation for me has been going on for 40 years. You'd think it would get old, but you know something? God, it gets more profound, more powerful, more meaningful, more significant every day, every time I have a conversation about it. And, you know, you think, well, Michael, you must be a really slow learner if you don't know it all already. And you know what? I'm really clear. I don't know it all already. Still learning, still opening, still seeing different parts of this process and the function of this thing we call our minds that really isn't a mind at all. It's just a carbon-based memory function. In fact, if you go back into the Aramaic, you'll remember there are two minds that are spoken of in those ancient scriptures. There's Adam's mind, and they say of Adam that, you know, he fell into a deep sleep. It doesn't say anything about him waking up. And then there's this new thing that comes in. And let's take it out of the religious realm and just look at it from a practical point of view. There's this new thing that comes in that was called the mind of Christ. It's spoken of often. And, you know, we have that mind, which I would offer each and every one of us has as our birthright to think with that mind, which is literally the mind of the Creator. It is the mind of love. Love is the Creator. We can stop trying to figure out what it means, go to the experience of love, and then stop, because everything your mind's going to tell you is going to be a lie, because there's something that goes against that mind of love in you, that mind of Christ, and it was called what? Obviously, the Antichrist. And you remember that the Antichrist had a number, and the number was 666. It's interesting, you know, if you let's say, had 100 people in the room and brought somebody in the room to do something that virtually everybody in the room would consider really terrible. So this person comes up to the front of the room and does whatever it is that they do. And one person is mortified, horrified. One person's enraged. One person's grieved. One person's screaming, running out of the room. And, you know, if the cause of any of what happened in each of those minds was the same, then what happens in each of those minds would be the same. But obviously it's not. So obviously each of the 100 minds in the room that does whatever it does around that behavior has its own construct based in that behavior. You know, somebody might be ready to condemn that person to hell. Somebody might be ready to send them to jail. Somebody might be ready to pray for them. Somebody else, you know, everybody's going to have a different reality around the actuality of the moment. Where is the reality stored? That comes up in each mind, but obviously in each mind's so-called body. If we talk to a modern-day physicist and we had them do some investigation, let's say we cook down a human body to the basic elements, the most common base element in that so-called body is going to be carbon. And the atomic number of carbon is 6. There are 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons. Are the energetic patterns that come forward and replace the mind of love in you stored in that 666 carbon-based memory system? That's my offering. So there's a signal that will tell you when that 666 mind is active in you. That is, interjected into the situation will be some form of hostility or fear. If there is hostility or fear injected into the perceptual construct of the moment, know that your mind, that what that means is that your mind is using corrupt data to produce its perceptual construct. And that means that everything that the mind of hostility or fear is telling you about any given situation is a fraud and a lie. Carbon-based memory is a liar. This is the father of liars. There is no truth in it. No truth. When carbon-based memory replicates something from the past, when it plays out its content again and again and again and again, and it presents you with what you think is a present moment experience, but this present moment experience, you say to yourself, why is this happening to me again? Or why are they doing this to me again? And then when you really get down to it, you'll see that the again part is coming from carbon-based memory. It's a perceptual construct that says, here it is again. And so we have, fortunately, from the ancient Aramaic, a tool, a scholar's tool for collapsing what carbon-based memory feeds to us as the truth of the moment. We have the power to bring the mind of love into the presence of that anti-Christ mind or that anti-love mind. And when we hold to that active presence of love, that's when the carbon-based memory system starts to have its corrupt data removed. And the removal of that corrupt data is forgiveness. Now, the Greeks turned it around into, you did something terrible. The reason my perceptual construct is loaded with so much pain is because of what you did. But it's okay. The Greeks told me that I should forgive you. I should let you off the hook for the fact that my carbon-based memory is so full of pain and trauma and terror and turmoil and hatred and vengeance that I'll let you off the hook because it's there. And when you realize how silly that is, how ridiculous that is, and that that has nothing to do with forgiveness. It's a Greek act of pardoning. Yes, let somebody else off the hook for what's going on inside of you. They did a behavior that's off the wall. Great, pardon them. But if you call letting them off the hook forgiveness, then you'll never step forward. You'll never step in and do your forgiveness work. So forgiveness is the tool with which you collapse pained perception into its root content, and you bring that root content forward in the presence of love and heal. So if you let somebody else off the hook, and because you let somebody else off the hook, your mind quiets down and goes, okay, I can pretend I don't have this rage or fear or hatred or vengeance anymore until the next time somebody does something. And life has a purpose. Life abhors you being diseased. Hate, fear, rage, guilt, grief, all that stuff is disease, energy. Life doesn't like you having it. So it appears that the system has been set up so that if you hold any of those energies, somebody's going to come to visit. And it's going to be the person who's in tune with or in resonance with those energies. If each person lives in denial, look what you did to me, then the denial is going to cause dissociation from the very thing that I most need to embrace, that I most need to hold to, that I most need to work through. And then once I've dissociated from that, of course, I'm going to use that data to build my brain's image of everybody else. They're going to show up in my mind with my problem attached and swear it must be their problem. The objective here, if you want to pardon somebody, great, pardon them, but then go in and clean up the root content in carbon-based memory. And it might be, right down into your very genes that content needs to be cleaned out. So when you can hold to active present love and let that crazy content move, that's when dissolution occurs. And that's what the forgiveness worksheet is about, the reality management sheet. So if you're not using the worksheets, I'm going to suggest that you go to our website, whyagain.org. That's the word why, W-H-Y, and then the word again.org. And in the upper left-hand corner, there's a link that says Start Here. Put the pen to the paper, follow those links, and watch what happens to the content of your mind. Forgiveness is the tool with which you remove the very capacity to hold pain within your structure. You remove that energetic pattern. You can do the worksheet right there live on the website. You can download and print the worksheets, and there's several different versions. Each of them has different features, and there's a 7-step that is the latest one that we use on a regular basis. We invite you to take it and go to work with it. You can also go to your app store on your phone, whichever system you've got, the Android or the iPhone. Type in the words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. Heartland, that's all one word, Heartland. Aramaic, Aramaic, Forgiveness. You'll be looking at the world's only forgiveness app. And you can step right into that app, total complete privacy, and do your forgiveness work right there. It's awesome. Thank you, Jeannie. And so I'm going to head into the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? We're in the chapter on clarifying love. We'll do a couple of paragraphs. We're on page 126 for anybody that wants to follow along. If you don't have a book to follow along with, it's out of print, but you can go to Amazon or eBay and pick up a copy pretty cheaply, or you can go to our website and download the book free. So we've been talking to this character, Richard, about what love is, inviting him to realize who he is as love, and then to have the patience and stick around long enough. This is one of the challenges with the work, is go around long enough. They go, oh, I understand it now. And it's like, no, this isn't about understanding. This is about doing your work. So building the brain cells. And as you build the brain cells, deeper and deeper meanings will come to your mind about how this all works. And, you know, the last paragraph I read yesterday was from, again, page 126. An unwillingness to look deeper means that old patterns will tend to be passed on and played out by the next generation. Conscious, active, present love is the key to healing whatever needs to be healed. So we're offering that when you put the pen to the paper, you begin to remove content, and deeper levels of clarity will come to your mind. So Richard asked the question, what's the best tool for really, truly getting to the space of love within relationships with children, spouses, or myself even, and healing those generational patterns? And before we answer that question, let's just recognize that when you set a goal is a frequency. It is an energetic pattern that through resonance will pull everything in your field related to that goal into activity. And if there's hostility or fear that is pulled into activity, then your perception is going to be distorted. It is that the goal, there's some Harvard research that tells us that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells fire, the maximum amount of data that goes into conscious awareness is 9 bits. It's been estimated that in that same time frame, there are approximately 20 trillion bits potentially available. So when you think about it, if we live in a 20 trillion bit world, our goal causes 10,000 measurable units of electricity to happen in the brain. 10,000 brain cells are firing, and the mind reduces that. It's kind of like a reducing valve to a sum total of a max of 9 bits of data. Now, when you realize that something is going to determine which 9 bits of data are going to be used to build our perception, the genius piece of work from Yeshua 2,000 years ago to recognize that it was goals. You'll notice that, you're usually, unless you're just a really, truly, generally miserable person, you're pretty happy with most everybody when they're doing what it is that you want them to do. Notice the only time you're upset, quote unquote, at them, you pretend it's at them, is when they violate a goal that you hold for them. And that goal resonates everything right down into your genetic history, energetic patterns, unresolved or resolved, skills or lack thereof, are all pulled into activity, and the mind ferrets that whole energetic process out and shows you a picture made of 9 bits of data, a construct that is totally and completely false and non-existent in the world. If we listen to Einstein, he says, on such things as matter, we've been all wrong. What we've heretofore called matter is energy. Energy whose vibrations have been so low as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. So notice that you look out into a world of matter. You look out and you see a world of bodies. At least you think you're looking out. And it's a lie. You're not. You've never seen anything through your body's eyes. You can't. The eye is a one-way valve. Information comes in. You can't look out through it any more than you can pull the wires off the back of your TV antenna and look up the wires and see out through the antenna on the roof. You can't see through your eyes. Your brain generates this world that you see according to the content of your mind and the goals that you hold. And so you're going along and life is pretty good. You've been doing your work. You say, hey, I'm doing pretty well. And all of a sudden this big explosion of insanity happens inside. You go, what the heck happened here? I thought I was getting somewhere. Well, probably the big explosion of insanity is showing you that you are getting somewhere because you're developing the strength and the ability to go to new levels of doing your work. So when you go to those new levels, you get to look at things you haven't looked at before. And so you may literally pull something up from 10 generations ago, some horrendous experience that happened, and why am I in such turmoil and conflict and pain and, what's going on? Well, I just pulled that data into expression, and my mind is going to make a picture up out of that data. If the picture is of you, then I'm going to be sure that you caused me to feel this. But the simple fact is you can't feel anybody else's. The reason you're feeling this is because it's in you. If you don't like it, then you need to collapse your perceptual construct into the root of what your mind is pained about. And when you do, and you bring it forward in the presence of love, then you get to start to look at what's under the surface. And when that which is under the surface comes forward and is exposed to love, it begins to dissolve. And that dissolution is what we call forgiveness. So Richard says, how do we do this? When someone triggers a healing opportunity, and if you're in pain, You can do one of two things. You can play the denial game. You look what you did to me. You hurt me. You caused my pain. Or you can go, oh, I've been through this pain 87 different times, 42 different people. This must be about me. What's the goal I'm holding for this person I want to blame? I'm going to cancel that goal. I'm going to collapse that perception. When it collapses in on itself, I'm going to get to look at what's underneath it. I'm going to get to look at the root of it. And I may literally have perceptions that come from that person 10 generations ago that went through such trauma. I may literally get to experience that. But as I apply forgiveness, I remove that from my structure, from my genes, from my generations. So each time someone can resonate something based in hostility or fear in you, and it takes great learning to get to the point where you go, oh, this is my opportunity. So when someone triggers a healing opportunity, the first thing to do is to choose to be responsible for your mind's output. Forgive and learn to hold the condition of love in your mind in all circumstances, regardless of what your mind prompts you to do. Now, there are all kinds of feelings stored in there, unresolved, generations and generations of, I don't care who you are. Rage and fear and sadness and grief and hatred and vengeance and, generations of that stuff. And out of those generational patterns, you are going to feel like doing a certain behavior. But if you're going to recoup from these generational patterns, you've got to stop doing what you feel like doing and do what you've committed to do. If you've committed to live as love, as a human being, and rage comes up and you want to rage at somebody, you need to forgive your rage before you do another thing so you can keep your commitment to function as love. Pretty obvious thing, I think. We call the kind of love that we're talking about here all-encompassing love. The tool, my commitment from the Healing Through Relationships workshop, was developed to assist in creating that space of love. The powerful key to staying on track and keeping love in your mind when you feel turmoil is the best reminder I have found to get me back to a loving space when upset surfaces, at least daily, to your closest relationships, and say it aloud to yourself while looking in the mirror. Now, each of us has a personal code, a personal set of rules that our mind forces us to follow. It doesn't matter what we choose to do. We can say, oh, man, if anybody ever does that terrible behavior again, instead of raging at them, I'm going to be loving, gentle, and respectful. And you made that commitment to them, and you were, right? Until the next time they gave you the look. And then what happened to your resolve to be loving, gentle, and respectful? Your personal code took over. If rage was at the root of it, then you raged again and again and again and again. And you will get to forgive again and again and again and again as you shave off the emotionally impacted energy that's locked into your personal code that forces you to do behaviors against your own will and choice. So what I'm proposing here with this commitment is that this is a personal code that you want to teach to your carbon-based memory mind. All kinds of rules in your mind about doing something else. We're going to suggest that you consider adopting this as a personal code, and then practice with it until it becomes first nature to do it. So I promise to trust you enough to tell you the truth and treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect. I will do this in my thoughts, words, and actions, whether in your presence or not. In every interaction, I will look for and acknowledge the highest and best in you, as I surrender to love, our true nature. My connection to my source and nurturing my relationship with you are always more important than any issue. If anything unlike love comes up, I will hold this in my heart and listen as I learn to speak, experience, and be responsible for my own realities. I'm here, for and with you. I will keep communication open and keep love conscious, active, and present as we heal together and celebrate life. So there's a suggested personal code, and if you look at that, everything that we all do is autobiographical. So you just look through that and you can see the issues that I've faced in my life, in my world, as I developed that personal code. When I originally taught the workshop that today we call Healing Through Relationships, it was called Healing Your Relationships, because I thought there was such a thing as a diseased relationship, and you need to heal it. But there's no such thing as healing a relationship. There are perhaps two diseased individuals in a relationship that each need healing, but the relationship is a perfect creation that will reflect for each of them exactly what it is that they need to work through. And so through interaction in our relationships, we're going to draw the people that are going to show us what it is that we most need to heal. And when we do that work, everything changes. And I think what we'll do is we'll pick up with the commitment again on Monday, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. But what I'd like to do at this point is open the space for anybody in the phone queue with a hand up, or anybody in the chat room who has a thought for us. Miss Jeannie, do we have anything happening there?
Well, we actually have Bob in Australia and Tipia in Thailand, so our chat room
welcome.
covers
hey there.
large space.
Yes.
We have no hands up, so we have 33 minutes. If someone presses 1, we have plenty of time.
We need to send Peter a message in Sweden to get him on, and boy, that'll really spread the field, around the earth. And maybe there are people in other countries that we don't hear from. If you're out there, drop us a note. Let us know where you're from. I know that back a couple of years ago, we were doing a show, and Jeannie got an email from a fellow in Holland. And he said, I found your book online. I downloaded it free. I did these worksheets. It changed my life. And so here. And he had actually translated the book into Dutch and sent us the whole book translated. So it's now, another one of the translations that's on the website free. So you can download the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, in English, Russian, German, Spanish, Swedish, Farsi. Pardon me, not Swedish. We've got it translated into Swedish, but the publisher wouldn't let us put it online. And Dutch as well. So it's pretty cool to see how people have responded and supported us in bringing these tools forward on a global scale. If you happen to speak a language that we don't have translated, the book translated in, we would love your support in translating it and making it available. So if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, we've got a half an hour to chat. Our calling number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show. And then if you push 1, we'll be having a conversation. How can we support you? Jeannie, you started to say something, sweetie?
I was just going to say, out of all of the translations, we have so many things translated in Spanish that we actually have there's a link up at the top that says Spanish, and if you click it, it has, the book, it has the commitments, it has worksheets. There's just lots of things all in Spanish. So that's, we had so many that we actually gave it its own page. And in the book, we've got a portion in Thai. I think Tippy is going to be doing some translating for us, but we only have the 7-step and the 12-step wake-up sheets, and then an article on Rachma and Kubalov that are in Thai. So the whole book has not been translated there. We do have Dutch, English, Farsi, French, German, Russian, Spanish. So, and all of those are on the website. And then, like Michael said, we have the Swedish, but it's only in hard copy. So we have 2 hands up.
Awesome. Let's say hello.
All right. The first one is Julie 541. You're on the air.
Hi, it's Julie from Ashland, Oregon.
Welcome, young lady.
Hey, I'm doing my work a little here, and something came up that I think I wasn't sitting down with pen and paper, and it slipped away. So I know there's something really just under a top layer ready to come forth. But what I am aware of right now is an anger that I have towards myself. And when you were reading the commitment to you, I know there's also a commitment to myself, so I'm going to look that up and read it. But it has to do with
Julie, I lost my connection there for a second. Julie, could you just start the conversation over? I apologize. I dropped out and I had to dial back in.
Oh, sure. And sometimes my microphone, I'd let it drop and talk away from it. So anyway, I hear you. Okay, well, I'm just looking at how I've betrayed my commitment to myself a lot over and over again, and I'm kind of back in that spot now. And the anger that I also have towards myself rather than towards others. So anger is up, and because it's inside me, and the thing that it looks like in my life, the perceptual reality is that I'm regretting that I chose to trust science and the medical community and have an eye operation that I didn't really need because I knew better than to try to fix something outside of myself. I knew that I could heal the thing in my eyesight by doing my work. You know, I trust that, okay? But it seemed like it would take a long time and blah, blah, blah. So I took the shortcut, and I'm experiencing that this eyesight promise of the procedure is not exactly perfectly remedied. And I'm in the belief responsibility sort of kind of space of knowing that I'm the one that still has to heal my eyes, you know? I mean, so now I've kind of complicated the situation because I've had a procedure. And now I know I'm blaming, too, and I'm in denial, and there's all those things. So I just feel like, and I said before you got cut off, that I'm touching on a root. I've been doing my mind shifter, but it slipped away because I wasn't doing it with paper at the time this one started to come up. So I know something's just underneath the surface, just in time for the breathing tomorrow, and I'll be doing some written work today and tomorrow, or today, towards that. So just, I guess, letting you know. Oh, and I mentioned the commitment to myself. I need to read that. Yeah.
Right. So it sounds like perhaps some work around betrayal by authority, and that probably goes back to power person stuff with mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
Might be appropriate to do in that regard. And, you know, I know that you've done some work with Magda, and I actually talked to Magda this morning, and she shared on the show a while back how she was working on deserving, and that she'd had a really huge opening in that regard and was finding a major shift in her life because she had been going for so long in this belief that she didn't deserve the quote-unquote good things to happen.
Oh.
And so you might, I know you've done some work with her, so I bring that up for 2 reasons. One, to say that it sounds like very likely some of that you're doing is about what you think you deserve. You're getting what you think you deserve. And you might want to clean some of that up, and you might have a conversation. As I say, I know you've done some work with her over the years. You've been supportive with each other and know each other, and you might have a conversation and get some support from her on how and what she's been working on and what's open for her to come to that whole new level, because she said it's like her whole life has just made a shift around that issue.
Oh, good.
Our other caller is Magda, so I'm going to turn her microphone on as well.
What a coincidence. Resonance. Oh, how funny.
Speak of angels and angels appear. Hey, Magda.
Hi, everyone. Do we have a good enough connection that you can understand me?
Pretty
You're loud and clear.
Okay, because this phone is on its last legs. I thought maybe
it's a little fuzzy sounding, like last legs, but yeah. Just talk slowly. We'll get it.
Okay, good. Right. Yeah, it's so good to hear from you, Julie. And I would be delighted to talk with you anytime that you want. We'll make arrangements. I was actually calling. You mentioned the responsibility communication, and I was calling because of that. Way back, several months ago, when we did the online class of healing through relationships, which was a really dandy, wonderful class.
In the codependence intensive.
Yeah, right, intensive. It was intense. And then when we got to the responsibility communication part of it, Chuck and I volunteered to do that together, and with the community helping and with you helping us to get through it. And one of the recommendations that came from somebody, I don't know who it was, I don't remember, was that we could consider the commitment each morning together. And we have been doing that every morning since. I think we've missed 3 mornings out of all those months. And sometimes we read it together. We take turns with the sentences. Sometimes we read it, the whole thing together. Sometimes one of us will read it to the other. It has made quite a difference in our relationship. It's just made everything sweeter, smoother.
That's awesome.
And it's a great tool if utilized, just like all the other tools, right, Julie? So,
yes.
One of the things that I've noticed is really helpful is that when something does come up between us and there's a behavior involved that is less than love, if we can actually grab the part of the commitment that addresses that and just say that sentence, it really makes a difference. It brings us back to solving and healing rather than going forward in anger or resentment or whatever happens to be going on. So I just wanted to share that with y'all, and there you are. And then Julie came on.
How perfect. How perfect. And yeah, that's, it's a matter of, if you're going to do a new personal code, you've got to keep the brain cells. You realize that personal comes from 1,000 generations. You go back into the scriptures and they talk about, look to the lives of the fathers. And of course, it wouldn't be limited to males, fathers and mothers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. Those personal codes are so deeply embedded, right, genetically. And yeah, it's going to take time to dig that up, clean it up, forgive it, and instill a new personal code. So keeping it in front of you keeps those brain cells firing, and you're more likely to function out of the brain cells that are firing the strongest than the weaker old patterns. As you forgive the old and reinforce the new, then the personal code gradually shifts. And so
that's a good point to remember, that the strength of whatever it is we're wanting to change, it won't happen automatically, only when what the new change is stronger.
Takes effort.
So and that's what practicing does. Very cool. Very good.
That's awesome.
I have something that I'm getting clear on real quickly here, if I may. I have something coming up that's having to do with like a possible illness that I had in a previous life, and I'm not trying to make it all sound fluffy and removed from me now. It's now energy of feeling unable to communicate clearly for myself. And in the past energy is from generational, something to do with, I've had two kinds. One of being abandoned because I had some disease like leprosy or I was left to die or something like that. And then another one is this inability to communicate was like an autistic life or a, what do they call it, Asperger's, a touch of that. And I feel like it's like coming up for me as a reality experience. It's harder for me now to communicate. And so there's mostly I'm blocking truth, and that's my articulation is not wanting to tell the truth about something. So that's the hint I have about what's coming up, ready for the workshop tomorrow, and I'm going to do some writing today.
Powerful. So how about a mind shifter? Let's add a mind shifter
okay.
to a different one.
Okay, great. Mm-hmm.
Telling the truth quickly heals all abandonment issues for me.
Mm-hmm.
And supports closeness in my relationships. Good breath. That's the one.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, that was all I had to say. It's just that breath that's what we want. That's where the energy starts to move.
Yeah.
So that'll be a perfect one for you to write between now and tomorrow. The still point breathing workshop tomorrow. That'll be perfect.
I'm interested that you used the word quickly, telling the truth quickly, like so I can tell so that I guess don't layer lies over it. But I wanted to say that yesterday when I shared that I got the message to remember that when someone's in pain, they're asking for love. And I could also see that I was in pain and asking for love. And so I did that. I gave love. I became a space of love again and communicated from there. And because I've practiced this, I always trust and open to what I'm going to be shown rather than trying to figure it out. I set that figuring out aside. And I'm realizing, yesterday I was realizing that actually the words came in our conversation in that space of love more so than I felt able to communicate before. Like things were open and flowing and easier for me to communicate, and I said things in ways that I'd never said before, or just it was there. It was just there, and it's so beautiful to trust that and allow it, and to know that the truth. Now I'm integrating the truth. It always allows the highest and best. No matter
and notice
what it
the
looks
power.
like. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, notice the power of speaking through, like you recognize you're in a healing crisis, something like Asperger's or autism is what the energy is moving through you. And bringing the commitment forward and speaking with clarity from that is it's what blows off, so to speak, cracks up the healing crisis energy, the deficient energy, helps to break that up so I can get free of its grip and bring the true power through of being. And, if you had a mind that seemed to be so distorted by something like Asperger's or autism,
Mm-hmm.
and that being behind that mind could be connected to deeply enough by the presence of love. You know, the last couple of days we've been talking about touching the hem of his garment. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. To strengthen that presence of being to come through, that's what's going to crack that whole facade. And, you know, whatever's stored in carbon-based memory from the past is going to begin to dissolve, to be forgiven in that power coming through. And I think that was an important part of Yeshua's work with healing with people, is they saw themselves as ABC. He saw them as the truth and was able to pull the truth of who they were in through whatever, you know, they saw themselves as, and just crack and dissolve that facade that created, you know, the ABC disease or the XYZ disease or whatever was going on. And that's where the diseases disappeared. And you'll notice repeatedly he hands the power back to the person who did the piece of work, rather than I performed a miracle for you, which is what, you know, lots of churchianity wants to do. They were all his miracles. If you listen to him, he doesn't say that. He says your work. You were the one who were ready to come through and you know, I mean, I almost like imagine there's a glass false image of who we are, and when another person can be totally in and connected to that space of love and reach through that glass facade, taking the hand of that being called love and drawing them in, it's like you can almost imagine that whole facade just shatters. It's gone.
Yeah.
And that's the self that Yeshua spoke about. In order for you to live, you true being, you non-being, that glass facade, have to die. It has to be shattered. It has to be forgiven. It has to be removed. And it's a big piece of work, because if we really believe, and most people do really believe, well, I do deserve to be abused, I do deserve this, I do deserve, that's the glass facade. That's what has to be cracked for the truth to come through.
Wow. And the other day when I did start picking up on my tendency, or that I was carrying some of this Asperger type of, you know, dis-ease, I was also seeing from what you're saying, I mean, if I start doing work on that issue, it resonates for everybody. I mean, I'm an avenue for that. You know, instead of overly identifying with it and figuring it out in my generations, you know, and then having to remember the incidents, you know, it's going to unlock. That's all. Yeah.
Well, and go back to the codependence intensive. And remember when we talked about the pseudo solution to the non-being mind? And the number one pseudo solution across the board is if I could just figure this out. And you can't figure it out. But you can bring forward, through the use of the tools, you can weaken the glass facade, and you can strengthen the state of being so that the dissolution of that facade becomes easier and easier.
Yes. Because I can see it. I can see it, and my vision will clear up. Everything related to not seeing will clear up.
Yes. And, you know, we've been given a world where there's certain tools available. And I've had people that in the past have said, you know, that there's some sort of a disease process. And they're like, but I know I can heal it. I know I can heal it. And, you know, it's maybe something with some serious symptoms attached. And I said, well, I realize, yes, you could heal it. I don't know how many years it's going to take. Is it really worth it when you could just walk into a sincere professional's office who can support you in making a change? Doesn't mean you have to stop doing your work around it, but to really, you know, I use an example of I'm thirsty, and there's a glass over there and a pitcher of water. And I sit here and I go, now I know the masters have told me that I could pick that pitcher up with my mind and pour the water into the glass, and I could drink it, and I could just lay here and have that happen. And, you know, I believe that's possible. But the fact is, we're given a set of legs to get up and walk over, pour a glass of water and drink it. So sometimes taking the support, I've suggested to people, that you take the support of something like, in the case of your eyes, perhaps a surgery that can help to enhance your life in a way that, well, yeah, you probably could do it, but, it might be 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Sometimes reaching a hand out for support is more prudent, I think.
Yeah. I'll incorporate it. It's all part of one set of eyes. So yeah.
And letting go of that distrust of authority is probably another. From what you were saying, listening to your words is probably another big piece in the puzzle.
Yeah, and I was just tuning into the fear around the truth and my fear of trusting the authority. It's the fear that I'm weak and I won't be able to handle it and they're going to get me and all that. So my worksheet's already happening now again. Thanks. This is powerful for me. Yeah.
Well, one more mind shifter.
Okay, I'm ready.
The authorities in my life have always been and always will be, impeccably trustworthy.
Oh.
So that'll give you a chance to look at all the times. Say again?
That got complicated immediately. My mind said, I got to figure out how to be impeccable with this stuff now, as if it's not already hard enough.
So that's the first thing that goes on the right side of the page.
Right.
Write that down. This is the impact of the mind shifter. Notice it's showing you that content in your mind, and that's the idea, is to record it so you get a clear picture of what it is you need to work through.
What did I say? My mind has to get really good at being impeccable. Oh, really good at being impeccable.
And this will probably be a good conversation if you go back and listen to.
Yes. Okay.
Breathing with you, young lady.
And thank you, Magda. I feel your love and support, and I also feel the resonance of the contentment with which you're receiving results in your work. I appreciate that, too. Thank you.
Awesome. Well,
all right. Well, any other thoughts?
People. Go ahead.
Any other
Michael?
thoughts for you, Julie?
Oh, I muted her. Hold on, I'll unmute.
Oh, okay. You're complete?
I'm good. I'm complete.
Okay. Awesome. Well, go ahead, Jeannie.
Okay, we have two people in the chat room. One is Kathy from Florida, and she's actually leaving tomorrow to go to Columbia. She has a double tooth abscess, and this just seems to be a recurring thing for her, and then having to go back home to Columbia to get it worked on. And she wondered if you had a mind shifter for her.
How about, can you tell us a little bit more about what's happening in your world?
So she's in the chat room, so I have to wait for her to type.
Yeah, sure.
I know it's happened several times for her that she'll have an abscessed tooth and she has to go down to Columbia and have it.
Yeah, it's a long way to go to get it taken care of.
Yeah. And this time she's got a double abscess.
Ouch.
So she's not written anything yet.
Well, I'll just throw out, while we're waiting for a response, if there's going to be one, that oftentimes teeth have to do with not speaking. And so you might look at whether there are issues where you haven't spoken up, or haven't been true to your word or honest with yourself or your intentions. Perhaps that would be useful to look at. And so a good mind shifter might be, it's safe and healing for me to speak my truth. It's safe and healing for me to speak my truth, and I always gain approval for doing that.
She just wrote back and says, I'm not sure, but it was said that one of the roots of the canals was not filled. I guess had a root canal and it wasn't filled totally, and that could be the cause for having the other abscesses. And Kathy, I'll have that mind shifter in the notes. Yeah. And then we have another question in the chat room, and it is from Tipia. And she says she's presented her first presentation. And
yay, congratulations, Tipia.
Yeah, and she's cleared up some issues at work with her boss. And she has a friend who was at the presentation, and her friend is very depressed. And she wanted to know, how can she use the worksheet with this friend to help her get over her depression? And then she has another question, and she wants a mind shifter as well.
Okay. Well, you know, for someone who's in depression is simply usually anger thoughts turned inward. And underneath the anger, there's always some pain. And so if your friend is willing to do the work of uncovering what's under the surface, is willing to do the work of forgiving the anger and letting themselves confront directly the pain. You know, anger is an anesthetic, it's a drug. So someone who has internal pain, the drugs themselves is very similar to the alcoholic that takes a fifth of scotch. Well, hey, if I have a fifth of scotch in my body, I'm feeling no pain. If I just rage a little bit, I don't feel any pain. But the anger turned inward turns into depression. And so the willingness to work through the anger and start to look at what are the thought disorders that need to be removed to eradicate the depression. That would be the direction to go with that. And you know, you're going to be at the Still Point Breathing Workshop tomorrow. Perhaps your friend might want to be part of that workshop. I don't know. The breath is always a big key in peeling off those layers of pain and depression. So that would be a starting point. You know, just they're going to have to just buckle down and do the work.
Okay, and her next thing is she says she really wants to do more around the purpose of being a coach or a consultant rather than her director work that she's doing for a living. And
right.
She would like a mind shifter around that. A couple things that I thought of as soon as she wrote that was, one, I don't know about in Thailand, but here you have to watch calling yourself a coach or a consultant unless you have a license for that. But then, you know, you may have to continue doing your director work until you can get established enough to do the coaching or consulting. But she said she'd like a mind shifter around that to make her clearer on her purpose. And
well,
of course,
my thought would
the
be
purpose worksheet too.
You know, we're down to last minute and a half, so we may have to take this up on Monday. But Thipia, I would suggest that you do the purpose exercise. If you go to the website and search for purpose worksheet and do that purpose worksheet, we do have a video called Purpose, Personal Power, and Commitment, But the worksheet itself is pretty self-explanatory. If you take that and put it to work and then get clear on, really clear on what your purpose is, then commitment, make a deep commitment to that, and then all the blocks that would inhibit you from doing that are going to start to surface, and that's where your forgiveness work will come in. So that would be a good starting point. And a mind shifter, I think we need to have a little more conversation. So maybe on Monday we can do that. But that'll be a good starting point, I think, if you take the purpose worksheet from the website, and or Jean will probably email one to you if she hasn't already, knowing Jeannie. And in the meantime, everybody, thank you for all the conversation. Create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Nice work, Julie.